This past week, President Donald Trump passed his 200th day in office, and even though his administration is still relatively new, he's already in really bad shape. So when you put aside the fact that he is under investigation by the FBI for numerous reasons, he also is losing support. So week after week, there's new public opinion polls that show that his approval rating is going down. And we're even starting to see polls indicate that he's losing his core support base, which is just a disaster. So according to The Hill, they report that President Trump's approval rating is at an all-time low in a new poll amid losses in support from key demographics. Trump's approval rating is at 32% in the latest IBD TIPP poll, down 5 points from July. 59% of respondents say they disapprove of the job he's doing. Now, Newsweek adds that confidence in Trump's ability to lead the country has shrunk, according to a new CNN poll conducted by SSRS and released early Tuesday. Since mid-January to early August, the number of Americans who feel less confident about Trump's abilities to lead on account of his behavior rose from 53 to 62%. Some of that is being driven by what he says on social media. Among white Americans without college degrees, the president has seen a fall of 12 percentage points of those who strongly approve of the job he's doing since February. Strong approval for Trump among Republicans also dipped to 59% from 73% in February, according to the poll, which sampled the opinions of 1,018 adults across the U.S. The erosion in support for Trump among his key demographic that he courted during the 2016 election campaign and who helped him win the White House tracks with the findings in a Quinnipiac University poll released last weekend. It showed a 10 percentage point drop in approval for Trump among white, non-college educated voters between June and August. And in the same CNN poll referenced in that article by Newsweek, they found that 6 in 10 people don't believe President Trump is honest and trustworthy. So he's just hemorrhaging support, and his administration at this point has just been a complete disaster. And with a president this unpopular and unable to cultivate legitimacy, this isn't just bad for Donald Trump. I mean, this is actually bad for democracy. It could be destabilizing for the well-being and health of democracy. And we already know that our democracy is in trouble, but Donald Trump is exacerbating the death of American democracy. Now, part of the problem is that his administration has been plagued by leaks that have just completely embarrassed Donald Trump. So, for example, we recently learned that the president receives a folder twice a day that contains positive news about himself, including screenshots of positive news cryons, those lower third headlines and crawls, admiring tweets, transcripts of fawning TV interviews, praise-filled news stories, and sometimes just pictures of Trump on TV looking powerful. Wow, that's sad. But when it comes to the more serious leaks, because of course, that's less substantive, but federal environmental scientists actually decided to leak a 543-page climate change report before Trump had the opportunity to hide it away from the public, which is another embarrassment to his administration since it contradicts what he said about climate change. And to me, I think that the leaking of this climate change report is more embarrassing to Donald Trump because leaks that reveal how thin-skinned and narcissistic and egotistical he is, that's one thing, but denying reality is an entirely different story, because at this point, if you deny climate change, you're denying reality. And I think that these leaks are partially culpable in what's hurting him, aside from his own stupidity. But what's problematic is that he is moving us closer towards authoritarianism by cracking down on leaks. So Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced recently that he is intending to crack down on leakers and maybe pushing the envelope when it comes to forcing journalists to reveal their sources, saying, quote, "We respect the important role that the press plays and will give them respect, but it is not unlimited." Now, the question is, what do you do if you're Donald Trump and you're unable to contain leaks, you're bleeding support, and the media gives you non-stop negative coverage? Well, of course, you take a page right out of the playbook of authoritarian dictators and you launch your own state-run propaganda network. I'm not joking. He literally launched Trump TV, and this was the first abomination that they produced.
Thank you for joining us as we provide you the news of the week from Trump Tower here in New York. More great economic news on Friday. The July jobs report added a better than expected 209,000 jobs. Overall, since the president took office, President Trump has created more than 1 million jobs. The unemployment rate is at a 16-year low, and consumer confidence is at a 16-year high, all while the Dow Jones continues to break records. President Trump has clearly steered the economy back in the right direction. On Wednesday, the president introduced the RAISE Act. For decades, a steady rise in immigration has depressed the wages of American workers. The RAISE Act will increase wages, decrease poverty, and save the taxpayers billions. Americans deserve a raise, and President Trump is finally putting the American worker first. Also on Wednesday, President Trump awarded the Medal of Honor to one of our Vietnam War heroes, Specialist 5 James McCloughan. McCloughan risked his life on 9 separate occasions, saving many of his wounded peers. President Trump also honored veterans as a whole with yet another VA reform package that will enable millions of veterans to receive better access to care. President Trump is dedicated to honoring these men and women who fought valiantly for our country and ensuring that they receive the care that they deserve. Thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm Kaylee McEnany, and that is The Real News.
That was real. That was not a parody. That wasn't satirical. That was Donald Trump's attempt to create a state-run source for his administration. Now, state-run TV sources are unacceptable because they're obviously not objective. They're biased. It's the definition of biased. You can't get any more biased than that. So they'll obviously only report on news that's kind to Donald Trump, or they'll just outright lie. And that's, in fact, exactly what they did, because the clip said that Donald Trump has, quote, clearly steered the economy back in the right direction. But actually, Donald Trump hasn't done that. He is riding on the momentum that President Obama partially generated with regard to the economy, because according to CBS News, quote, as far as job creation is concerned, Mr. Trump hasn't changed the direction of the economy. Under his predecessor, former President Obama, the last 6 months of his administration showed job creation at a slightly faster rate than the Trump administration. And the thing that we all have to realize is that presidents don't have that much control over the economy. They just don't. I mean, they're able to kind of steer the economy in one direction, but they don't have that much control. So Donald Trump couldn't just get in office and change the economy and, flip it and do a 180 within his first 200 days. That's impossible. So this propaganda show that he launched is just absurd, and it's unacceptable, quite frankly. Now, to be fair, of course, President Obama released propagandish videos where, it showed footage of his supporters crying as he walked into the room as if he was a saint, but he never did anything on this level. I mean, Donald Trump makes President Obama's propaganda videos look as credible as The Intercept at this point. I mean, this is propaganda on a new level. So, of course, the problem is that doing propaganda and having your own state-run media outlet isn't going to stop you from losing support. The only way Donald Trump can turn his failing administration around is if he actually starts giving a shit about the people and gives voters throws them a bone. I mean, he's got an office and has done nothing but try to give him and his buddies tax cuts. He wants to cut taxes for the wealthy. He wants to cut health care for the many. I mean, he is doing nothing to prove to us that he is as populist as he says he was during the campaign trail, which is why many of us say, correctly so, that he was a faux populist. And I tell him to stop golfing every day and actually represent the people of this country, but I think I'd actually prefer that he golfed instead and took more vacations, because the less that he's in office, the less that he's going to be fucking things up, because he's clueless. He's absolutely clueless. He's a fucking idiot. I mean, the guy has no intelligence whatsoever. So the less that he can do, I think the better we'll all be. So, Donald Trump he's bleeding support, and his administration is failing because he's a liar. He's a coward, and he's not representing the people like he claimed he would. Surprise, surprise. And future generations are going to be laughing at him when they read about his shenanigans in history books. So he's just a national embarrassment.
Support this podcast by joining the independent progressive media revolution today at humanistreport.com.